Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Monday morning. It is time for Footprints Forward, where we try to make sure that you, with us, we're continuing to walk forward and walk away from the thoughts of suicide and try to find paths in freedom from all the mental strain that today's world is putting on us. We are starting the show today and down one member. And I wanted to make mention, actually, we're down a couple members, but I'm hoping that he joins. But we want to make sure that we're sending out our love to Dennis, who just went through a procedure. And hopefully he's watching or even going to jump on and join us later if he can. But I received a message from Patrick this morning, and Patrick is not feeling well, so he will not be joining us, which is kind of sad because this would be the guest for those two gentlemen to meet. But you know what? We'll still make that introduction anyway. My name is Zach Clayton. I am the founder and president of Community Pay It Forward and Community Dare to Care, where we take and work with great partners like Mr. Z with Stephanie Samos, and we turn their business, their closed business, into a donation for people who ask us for help. So we would love to talk to you if you own a business. Let's get you in front of other people, and let's make sure that your business becomes that dreaded word essential for more than just your family. Next up, we have the goddess of the grape, Stephanie Samos.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, tuning in from our homestead here in West Virginia. So I apologize if the service isn't quite the best. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Stephanie Samos. I work with nonprofit organizations and people year-round to assist with fundraising through One Hope Wine. We are a cause-centered winery out of Napa Valley with over $9.7 million donated to date. So what I do is I specialize in fundraising, gifting, private wine events, and wine delivery. And what I love most is when you pour a glass of wine or send a gift, it's a great feeling to know that that bottle has made an impact for a nonprofit organization that's important to you. Yes, you get to choose the nonprofit that it gives back to. Zach and I run a monthly show highlighting smaller nonprofit organizations, helping them fundraise, but most importantly, to get their mission out to more people. Definitely tune in. If you check out my link tree, our page is right there. We are highlighting a really great organization called Community Pay It Forward and Community Dare to Care this month. So check that out. I'm also the co-founder of PNS Properties. We are investing in real estate with a focus on veteran housing. My last few years in the nonprofit world has really brought to light the homelessness crisis in our veteran communities. So we're focusing on that. I am also the co-founder of New Heights Homestead. We are traveling 580 miles with our family of 7. Yes, crazy. To build a mountaintop homestead from the ground up. So if you love animals, more natural living topics, and are curious about homesteading, you can follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel and come on the journey with us. I wear many hats, so feel free to connect with me through my link tree right there on the screen. Happy to be here. Thank you, Zach.
Let's be honest here. You've got a family of 12. You've also got 5 dogs mixed into there. So, and you know, as you guys seen with my dogs, they've become part of the family. So, but well, thank you so much, Stephanie, and thank you for doing everything that you can to make sure that you're here with us today. So I know that internet's a little wonky. We're going to try everything we can do to make sure that you stay with us. But Erin, the newest member to our family.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. Stephanie, love hearing all the things that you're doing to make the world a a better and brighter place. And I will be following your YouTube, as we talked about earlier. And my name's Erin Davenport. So my background is very varied in that I've pretty much done everything because I love exploring what makes somebody somebody, and what is it like to step into their shoes and to experience life. And that has given me a great opportunity to be able to connect with so many different people, different walks of life. Most recently, what have been an international best-selling author for Short, Sweet, and Sacred. We actually just launched our third book this last month, and it was very exciting. Yes. And that was along with 50 other life coaches that are authors. And today I am in the middle of a transition, so more information to come soon, but I am essentially in ministry now, and also looking at how I can really help people to find that piece of, what is the point of why are we here? And to be able to come to resolution with that in a way that's very meaningful. So thank you all for having me here. And I just believe in this mission so wholeheartedly, and it's an honor.
Well, as we were just introducing you to Mike, I love the fact that we as a program, we as a family, we meet people like you, and we can tell your excitement, and there's just that connection there, and our family continues to grow. I don't expect our family to stop with you as well. I think that this is something that I'm hoping everybody sees the benefit in. One of our founding members and one of my closest friends, my brother, Mr. Z.
I thank you, my brother from another mother. It's always good to be a part of this family. And great to see you as always, brother man, Steph, Aaron. What you all are doing is truly commendable to bring awareness to the unspeakable. And I'm glad that we have a channel here that we can talk about the things that needs to be discussed, whether it's in a book, podcast, or even smoke signals if needed. So I'm glad to be here as always. So with that being said, my name is Z, or you can call me Mr. Z. I am a web developer, and I am also a consultant that specializes in helping nonprofits, veteran business owners, family-owned business owners, and entrepreneurs like yourselves who are looking to announce upcoming events, book online appointments, perhaps accept donations, and sell products and services without the use of eBay or Jeff Bezos. I also provide a free consultation to those who are looking to get started on their brand new website, and to those that have an existing website, but they're not comfortable with the idea of making changes to their own website in the back end, whether it's WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, and more. So, with that being said, if you are looking to maintain, develop, redevelop, or develop a custom website that is specifically catered to your needs, whether it's a nonprofit, family-owned business owner, family-owned business, or a veteran-owned business, well, let's develop a website the world is waiting for. Thank you so much, and back to you, brother man.
Thank you, my brother. And to be honest with you, one of the Mr. Z is the mind behind communitypayitforward.us. I couldn't be happier to have this long relation with him. Mr. Z and Z World Webs is one of our forever partners. So he means so much to what we do, and he, just as everyone else here he is. Our guest today, I met Mike a couple months ago, and he and I talked. And first off, he's just energetic. I think that his energy is something that you guys are really going to get a kick out of. I see him laughing right now, but he's in the Georgia area right now, and we just lost Stephanie for a little bit. Hopefully, she'll pop back on. But Mike Van Pelt, you have the program True Man's. What's the last part? I always forget.
Well, I have a podcast called the True Man Podcast, and then my men's life coaching business is True Man Life Coaching.
what are some of the things that, and obviously it's men's coaching, but what are some of the biggest problems that you are noticing out there? Why are men coming to you right now?
Well, there's a lot of chaos in the world. There's a lot
No.
yeah, there's a lot of
This
chaos.
coming from a guy in Georgia where nothing's going on.
Yeah, I mean, you could start and end with the word chaos, I think, but I think too, the what people are really searching for is hope. And I feel like a lot of people have lost some degree of hope, and take that a step further. I talk a lot about masculinity, right? Because I'm a men's life coach. And so, there's a lot of conversation around, how does a man be a man in this world where, much of the time we find ourselves talking about crazy things like toxic masculinity or, what men are doing wrong versus, what they're doing right. And so, I think that, your identity can get lost in all of that. It can, I find men that in my coaching world just want somebody to walk alongside them and have somebody guide them in sometimes the state of confusion that they're in, or what is the next step they want to take in their life. So that's what I do with my coaching.
It is a little difficult nowadays, and ladies, and I'm sorry I'm going to say this, but I mean, it is a little difficult nowadays to where back when, back a couple of years ago as a guy, we didn't have to watch everything we say. And now in a way, thankfully, there's more awareness on what we've been saying, a lot of the stupid stuff we would say, but it does take a lot for somebody to get used to, I guess, navigating around PC. I don't want to use the W word. I hate the W word, but navigating around PC, that's what people are struggling with, right?
I think that, we just need to use common sense, and really, what some of this comes down to is communication. How do you want to be communicated to? I don't know. I don't know about this PC world. I mean, it doesn't work. It causes a state of confusion. It puts everybody in silos. It causes people to pick sides. But really, what this comes down to is common sense. Ask somebody how they want to be communicated with. I had somebody on the podcast a while back. She's a behavioral specialist, and we talked about this. How can a man act in the workplace? Can you comment on a woman's hair? Can you hold the door open? Can you comment on what they're wearing? And the answer is, for some people that answer is yes, and for some people that answer is no. But the appropriate thing to do is to find out from somebody how they want to be communicated with.
Easy for you to say.
Well,
and
yeah.
Don't try this at home. He's a professional.
Yeah. And so, it's what's appropriate is to ask somebody what their boundaries are, period. Bottom line really is what this comes down to. And, some people, we all want to be seen and heard, right? You get a nice haircut, you get a new dress, you get a new suit. You want somebody to comment about it. And so, I don't get too caught up in what's PC and not PC, because quite honestly, it's a small percentage of our population that wants us to be PC. It's the majority of us are just like going, oh my gosh, what's going on with it? This is completely wackadoodle. And the reality is, we can't continue in our culture to react to everything that somebody says or does. It's because it's causing a great divide. What we need to be focused on is, quite honestly, what this show's all about, and that's mental health. We have a mental health crisis going on in our country, and my concern is, probably like you all, who's taking ownership over this? How are we helping people? what can we do to help people? And so, let's have more focus on that and less focus on the 1% of things going on that a majority of the people aren't paying any attention to anyway.
Yeah. Irene, you are very right. And before we continue, we want to make sure that everybody understands that we are sending our love out to everyone in California and in Hawaii. We are heading into a storm season, and by the looks of it, it's not going to be a friendly one. So our hearts and our resources to everyone that are out there. If you guys need anything, please reach out to any of us. We're all here to help. And Irene, thank you very much for bringing that up. And then Irene also mentioned that in Japan, they just celebrated their July-August Obon Festival, in which we invite all of our dead relatives to come home and feast with us. This is intriguing because I watched something on Josh Gates, big on the History Channel and stuff like that, was going through. They've got something out there called The Search for the Afterlife. I don't know if you've ever watched that, Mike, but that's really neat because it goes and it talks about all the religions and how they treat the ones that they've lost, and it's really intriguing. But with what Irene was saying, I thought that was very. It just brought that up in my mind. But Mike, as a guy, what is the most important thing that we need to remember when it comes to someone else?
When it comes to, I think being empathetic and just showing that you care, with people and putting yourself in their shoes is really important. Seems to be a little bit of a lost art these days where everybody's got their face planted on their mobile phone and not actually physically talking with people. But there's something to be said about just genuinely showing that you care and you're concerned about somebody.
Aaron, do you have anything yet that you would like to bring in on this? Or I know it's a little bit earlier than we usually do, but this is one that I'd really like to hear from yourself and Stephanie quite a bit on.
Yeah, what was being shared about the phone, I think that there was a time where I was feeling like totally absorbed in my phone. I think this definitely relates to everything we're talking about here. It was almost like this place where when I felt alone or I didn't want to address the feelings I was feeling, the phone was always that thing that's always there that I could just kind of drown out the thoughts or not feel alone. Maybe I could have a social engagement and be with people, but the easier thing was to just go to the phone. And I remember this situation, I won't get into all the details, where my phone broke and I had just bought it 3 days before that. And I was pretty frustrated. I'm smiling, but I was pretty frustrated back then. And it was just after this amazing trip in Utah. We had done some off-roading in over in Moab, and that was the end of it. And it was so interesting because I thought back to when I was looking at the sites, somebody had come up to me and said, "Hey, why don't you just enjoy the view and just be present?" And then right after that, my phone broke. And I really do think there was some things going on in the background for all of that to be happening, to realize I decided to get a flip phone for a year. And during that year, it was actually, in a way, even more lonely because I would go to the doctor's office, I would sit there, and I had nothing to distract myself. And I would look around, and everybody else was just looking down at their phone, which is also why I love Kenya and visiting Kenya and Africa, because people are not on their phones at all, and everybody is talking and integrated into community and having such a vibrant culture. So there's so much I believe we can learn from this world around us and how we can learn to integrate. And I actually think that the cultures that have not caught up to us with technology could be a great place to look as far as what are some things we can learn about being able to be in more of support of each other, because we all go through dark times. But what do we do if we don't have anybody that's in our corner because we haven't created that type of community that has our back?
That's I do really like that. And it is kind of funny, you mentioned that, and I'll go to a doctor's office and I've got my personal cell phone, my work cell phone, and my iPad, because I am so afraid that I'm going to miss something. And when I get there, I usually don't ever even use them, because I do like to communicate with people. I'm kind of one of those people who I like to use myself a lot of times as a, I guess as a joke. Like, I'm the guy that'll go and stand in line where I can see mom having a tough time with her kid, and I'll have all kinds of candy or stuff, donuts, whatever, because I'm a fat guy. But I'll put them down on the little rotating thing there, and then I'll sit there and I'll make the comment, oh wait, and take and ask, excuse me, and I'll grab my Diet Pepsi, and look at her. Well, I got to watch my girlish figure. I'm the guy who tries to like to do stuff like that, to decrease a little bit of pressure. Why do men feel like they have to always run away from things? Why are men so shut off a lot of times when it comes to stuff like this?
I look at about 4 different fears that guys have, and I bring this up, and it's the same thing. I've got a collaboration book coming out, and the chapter that I wrote in the book is The Power of Asking for Help. And one of the things that guys are really challenged with, and it's not necessarily a guy thing, but guys in particular, we'll bury stuff rather than ask for help. In other words, we'll have a wound or a hurt. Maybe it's something that happened when we were younger, or something that occurs, throughout our life, and we will bury it inside our souls, hoping that we never have to deal with it. And the reality is that you can't bury it. It's always there. And a lot of times it's just bubbling to come out. And in the book I wrote about the power of asking for help and how important it is for men to ask for help, regardless of what your situation is. And I found that there are really 4 primary reasons why guys don't ask for help. That's either the fear of rejection, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of authenticity, like I may be found out if I'm real, and the fear of just feeling unworthy, like they're not worthy of love, or whatever the case may be. But those fears will drive a man not to take action and bury it. And what concerns me from a mental health perspective is my target market, really, to some degree. I'll work with any man, but my target market is that middle-aged guy. And in our country, middle-aged men are committing suicide at the highest rate. Now, there are other women try more often. Men typically choose lethal means in order to take action. And so, the middle-aged men have the highest rate of suicide. And in addition to that, I wish I had this sitting on my desk. The Surgeon General recently of the United States recently talked about this and called it an epidemic. Just like many of the other epidemics that we have going on, loneliness and isolation is, the Surgeon General is now calling it an epidemic. And loneliness and isolation is something that we do when we bury this stuff deep inside, and it can lead to other serious mental health issues. So there's, I'm sure there's other fears that guys go through, but those are really the 4 that I mentioned in my article, and what holds guys back from taking action on things.
Aaron, you had another question?
Yeah, I had a question for you in regards to mental health and men who have reached out for your support and they've gotten to work with you. I guess I'd love to hear what's a breakthrough that maybe they've given you permission to share? Because I know that there are some
Yeah.
things that are not able to be shared, but is there a story you can think of about maybe what that process looked like for somebody to shift their life when it comes to their mental health in part of working with you?
Yeah. Now I will say this, and I do want to be clear about this. I'm a life coach. I'm not a therapist. So if
Yes.
somebody needs some mental health, I always go out of my way to make sure that we get them taken care of in a way that they can get taken care of. But, the biggest breakthrough that I think that I can talk about or that I often see is so much of the time, men in particular, women are really great about being in community and groups and having deep conversations. Guys are not. I mean, the joke in my house is I'll come home from the golf course and my wife will go, "What you guys talk about while you're on the golf course?" And it's typically something along the lines of, well, how bad we were playing. It's very on the surface conversation. And what I found for a lot of guys is that they're not used to having more than an inch deep conversation. And we have to be very intentional about having those deep conversations. Guys aren't necessarily used to talking with somebody about their marriage or their kids and what's going on beneath the surface. And many times that's truly what is affecting them. And I think the biggest breakthroughs come when a man is able to put that, their pride aside a little bit and be vulnerable and talk through what's going on in their life. That alone for many men is a breakthrough. They've never done it before. They've never had somebody talk to them in that way. I mean, I had a lot of great buddies that I grew up around. We didn't talk like that, right? We didn't talk like that. We were busy talking about how all our ball games went. But, I think what I want to see men get to is that they understand that it's okay to be vulnerable. And oh, and by the way, you can be vulnerable and masculine at the same time. In fact,
Yeah.
that's really where most of us hang out. We just don't call it that. And I think it's a very important state to understand that you can be in, that you can be present by being vulnerable and masculine. In fact, what I have found myself is it's that place of more that I want to try to get guys to. It's freedom to be able to live in that space where you don't have to put on a persona, a mask, try to fake it till you make it, whatever the case may be. Those are, you don't want to live like that. That's a horrible way to live. And a lot of guys choose to live there. And I think the biggest breakthroughs I have are when somebody realizes, oh, I can just be me, and that's very satisfying to see somebody live a life like that.
Well, we've lost Stephanie. It looks like well, first off, she had a young, hungry child, I think. So, and young, hungry children kind of dictate our lives. So they tell us, you're no longer allowed just to put them in a closet and say, "Be quiet until I'm done." At least I don't think you're allowed to do that anymore. So,
we don't encourage that.
Yeah, definitely don't do that. Mike, let me ask you this question. How many meetings, in general, is it taking for somebody to come in and open up? They don't do it on their first meeting, do they? They kind of want to come in and sit there and this would be my guess because, I know I would come in the first time and I would kind of sit there and check out the landscape. And even though we are the big tough guy, we're still we got to feel like we're in a safe space to where, we're not going to stand up and then have some guy go, "Wow, that guy is a real wimp," or, whatever. Right.
It just depends on the situation. Obviously, when you're one-on-one, there are things that are going to come up right away. I've seen stuff come out in group right away. It just depends on what somebody's going through, but I would say a majority of guys, because, and I love men's small group, by the way. I think that is something that I'm migrating to more and more all the time, because I think we can learn from each other. I also believe we're built for that, that we can learn from each other. But, most of the time we take a little conservative approach. I know I did. I mean, I wasn't going to walk into a room and just go, well, here's what's going on in my life. Now, I can do that now, but I'm in a different place, and that's a place where you have to get to. In fact, there were things I wouldn't talk about that now I go on a podcast and talk about, strangely enough, and not over the line stuff. I mean, there's obviously my private life is my private life, but part of that comes with just getting comfortable with you. And I think the other thing too is that we all think our story is unique to us. Now, it's unique to you in that it's your story, but I assure you, somebody has lived some aspect of what you've gone through, and they can be a great asset to you. So, when you hold that stuff inside and think, well, nobody knows what I'm feeling, you'd probably be shocked to find out that more people than not have, and they can be your best asset. Somebody that I have not, in my family, for example, I've not had anybody commit suicide, but I know a lot of people that have had that happen to. I can't relate to what that feels like. I can imagine, I think, but I don't really know. And so, I'm very careful about how I go about that, because there are things that I've experienced and, that I might not, be able to fully understand, what somebody's gone through. But
are there times though, Mike, that somebody comes in and they're talking to you and you're like, you have that feeling? It's like, look, I can't let this guy just walk out right now. If I let this guy walk out, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to see him again.
I was at a retreat here a little over a year ago, and I was sitting at the same table with a guy who had gone through some stuff in his life. And I reached out to him while we were there, and I said, I gave him my contact information. I said, I'll be available to you. And actually, it was after the retreat, the guy drove home. He was sitting in his driveway and he called me. He's like, I'm just sitting in my driveway calling. He's like, what? Or crying. And he's like, I think God spoke to me. And I'm like, well, if you feel like God spoke to you, then God spoke to you, And we talked for a little bit, and I actually asked the guy, I said, I will walk through a book with you that I typically recommend. John Eldridge, Wild at Heart, is a fantastic book to go through for guys that, are just finding their faith and their way in life. I said, I'd be happy to go through that book with you. We'll do a chapter a week. And so I give those types of things when I meet somebody as an option. Hey, how about we go through this and just talk through what the book, what's in the book? What's amazing to me, Zach, is how many guys don't want to do that or won't take the time to do that. Now, here's a guy who called me crying in his car, but he doesn't want to read a chapter a week and have somebody walk with him to learn more about what's going on. That's mind-boggling to me, but that's a decision that we all make. You have a choice. I can walk in a light. I can do it on my own. I can walk in darkness. These are choices. And one of the things I've gotten really good at is I know what I realize when I'm working with guys is I can't want it more than they do. They have to want it. And I will ask them questions and I will give them things so that they have to make a decision. And if they choose to take action, we're good. If they choose not to take action, that's on them. I can't help somebody that doesn't want help, sadly. And that does bother me, by the way, but I have to release it.
Well, could this be our well-documented fear of commitment?
Well, sure. If we commit to something, we may find something out that maybe you don't want to deal with it. You may find out something you didn't know was there. There's a variety of things. But again, in the end, what I could tell somebody is chances are pretty high you're going to feel a lot more freedom in your life by releasing that and exploring it than holding it inside you.
Mr. Z, do you have anything?
A lot of things. Great fatherly advice. If your kid's bothering you, leave them in the closet with a bag of chips. And that's
Father of the Year.
Perfect. I mean, couldn't ask for a better advice. I'm no father, but I do want to say lots of great tips, lots of great words hearing from you, Mike, Zach, Aaron, of course, Irene. Just want to follow up and say with what Aaron said, with being present at the moment. There's a lot of people just trying to distract themselves with their own virtual world of their mobile devices instead of just being here and being present. And that's the present you can give. And Mike, you bring up a lot of good points about how people, and I often suffer with this too, is I often don't like to talk about my feelings. I don't really want to get into the whole, oh, how was your day out? Everything's just fine and dandy. But what I've learned is that 50% don't care and 50% don't want you to succeed. So it's just better to keep my mouth shut. But that may not be the case, but that's just when things were less PC. And Irene did make a good point, and just opinionated here. A lot of people are sensitive these days, and when it comes to being politically correct, and Zach and I often joke around about this, and no offense for those watching, we can't say mailman anymore. We can't say ice cream man anymore. We have to say postal service engineer, carrier person, expert. Or when someone's delivering ice cream, we can't say the ice cream man. We would have to say soft serving genius entrepreneur distributor or something. But the point I'm trying to make is
community hero. You forgot community hero.
Oh, there it is. Baby carrier, community hero, brilliant. But what I'm trying to say is everything that you guys have, or you people have been saying, it's congruent to how most people think. So what I'm trying to say is, in terms of being out there, being empathetic, being a person that's willing to share their feelings, everyone has their own unique story. And people think, oh, if I don't share this, no one's going to care. But I'm learning that slowly. And when you said, Mike, when a person when they have their own story, but they don't share it, it may seem like it's their own story, but there's someone out there, maybe it's their next door neighbor or someone across the world that has experienced what they're going through, and they can give them that advice and say, hey, I know what you're going through, but I can only sympathize or empathize. And here's what I've done to get over this. Wow, I've never told anybody this. I'm so glad someone knows what I'm going through. I'm not alone in this. So I think it's great that you're open to share your thoughts and what you're going through. And I know it came across as a little bit blunt, as like, oh, no one cares and everyone wants to see you fail. But that's just someone's thoughts. That may or may not be true. But just sharing that with everyone does help me realize, hey, that's not the case. There are people out there like Aaron, Steph, Zach, yourself, Mike, and Irene, who are those who want to listen and help than just to listen and judge. So I do want to say that I think it's very helpful to bring awareness that we're all human. We're not just robots. And I know things are different in the 1930s and the year 2030. Things are different within the last 100 years. But I did have a question for you, Mike, if you don't mind.
Sure.
It might be a little bit controversial.
Go ahead. Fire away.
So you talk about the men, thank you, the men, I should say mentality of how most men think. And there's this thing called, I laugh when I say it. There's the alpha male, beta male, sigma male, all this mentality to give people an excuse to treat people a certain way. What are your thoughts about the I don't want to say their names, but let's just say certain people who want to be tater tots? I'll call it that.
I look at everything that I do comes from a biblical worldview. The true man name is right out of the Bible. It's Jesus Christ walk on earth as a true man. That was actually our men's small group. That's what we came up with. Why? Because we felt like Jesus Christ was the role model. He was the person that we needed to look at to live up to. And because I'm not some marketing genius,
Yeah.
I called my coaching. Actually, it was a podcast that led the way. We, my men's small group partner originally and I named the podcast the True Man Podcast, where we could talk about men being men and good husbands and good fathers and that type of thing. So I look at everything from a biblical worldview. That's where I take everything from. That's just my personal belief. And so I check in with scripture on everything when I'm looking at what's going on in the world. I want to know what scripture has to say about certain things that are going on. Does that answer your opinion, your question?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, ultimately what I'm helping guys with typically are their goals, their vision, their purpose, their mission. I find it personally incredibly hard to talk about those things without having Christ at the center of it. Because in my mind, he drives everything. And so I look everything that I make a decision on, I have to check in with that. And, God provides free will to everybody. And so people get to decide for themselves what they want to do with their lives. And they can make decisions accordingly. Now, let me just say this. Again, I'm going to circle it back to phones. What you find on your phone, what you find on social media, how the media dictates what's going on may not be the truth. And so, don't let what you're hearing on the news, if you choose to subscribe to certain news media outlets, I would not let what you're seeing on the news or hearing on the news or on social media drive your thoughts. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think right now is definitely not a good time to let one side or the other sway your thoughts. So it is very divisive. Sorry, Aaron, you had another question and a comment.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that what you're doing is so important that I kind of think of it almost like discipleship. Having somebody who's like a leader that is also on the same journey, essentially being able to walk with people through life. I think that's really powerful, very needed today. And the first part is just kind of a reflection, as I mentioned at my intro, is that I did life coaching before, mostly with women, but a couple of the men, you got me thinking, because I did have a couple male clients. It was just open to anybody. Usually women would gravitate and mostly be the ones reaching out for help. But I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, a lot of the couple of men I did support, maybe there's like 3 or 4. I think that only one of them finished. And it was just interesting when you shared about before taking the initiative to get started to reading the book. What I kind of noticed was the desire to get from point A to point Z. And when it wasn't maybe happening quick enough, there was, in some cases, not all of them,
Yeah.
a little bit of a discouragement or like, I want to just get on with the program. I'm an A to Z kind of person. So I also get that thought process, but I'm not a man. So there's a part of it I don't understand. So that's something I thought I would throw out there just to see your experience.
Mm.
And also, I remember my favorite client, he was past Navy and he would show up on time every time to every single session, do every single
Yeah.
assignment, do
Yeah.
everything. And it was really neat to just watch him evolve from, like you said, more living in the day to day, just taking command essentially with that kind of thought process to start evolving into dreaming up what he would love his life to look like. So, yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about maybe how you kind of see the trend, how you work people. I don't know, just your approach, I
Yeah.
guess, with different kinds of people you come across.
Well, it's a really good question. You know, I think whether you're a man or a woman, when you approach somebody about having them be a guide or a life coach, that it's important that you don't just feel like you're checking a box. Okay, well, I'm done now, and here's, it's not a checkbox thing, I don't think. I feel like my life is always evolving, always changing. I'm always learning something new. And so I'm never where I want to be. I'm present with what I have, but I'm always trying to push myself forward. So I have in my life, I don't currently, but I've had a golf coach. And I've had a faith coach. I call my doctors my health coaches. Um, I have a business coach. I've had a podcast coach. Why? Because I think that I can always be learning and evolving. And I think sometimes people quit because they limit themselves. They put a limit on their capacity to learn, or it's like, okay, well, I figured this out. Now I'm done. Now, if they think they've arrived, then I guess that's one thing, and I think some people operate in a place of fear. Like something comes up, something bubbles to the surface maybe, and they're like, well, I don't know that I want to address that. And so rather than address it, they maybe just walk away from it. And again, I would say probably not a great spot to be in, you know? It will show up. I think what happens a lot of times, these things bubble up in our relationships, and they bubble up with the people that are closest to us. Hence, you have a divorce rate that is well over 50% at this stage, and people get divorced more often on their second marriages and third marriages. And typically why that is they just carry their baggage along with them, and they think it's the other person's fault. They've not taken the time to look in the mirror. And so my encouragement to everybody is look in the mirror and don't view yourself as a completed product, or that the coaching process is a check the box experience. If you're an evolving person. Now, whether they want to choose to continue services or not, that's a whole other, that's a whole other question, Aaron. But, I don't, it's hard to understand why people do what they do. But, I'm very fortunate to have two or three really, they're not coaches. They're really close personal friends in my life that really almost act as a coach, but they're almost an accountability type person that I have in my life, so that, if I have a question about something going on, I can call them and go, man, I just need to check in with you, brother, because this came up and I'm not sure how I'm feeling about it. Or last week, we took my daughter to college. And I got to tell you, a couple days leading up to that, I was feeling it. And I called, one of my buddies and said, man, I'm a little, it's upsetting to me, and I wasn't expecting this to bubble up in the way that it's bubbling up, and so we talked about it. So I don't know if I answered your question. People are so unpredictable, but I would just encourage people not to look at it as a check the box experience that, having somebody, I know we always talk about Tiger Woods, one of the greatest golfers in history. Even Jack Nicklaus had a golf coach. Arnold Palmer had a golf coach. Tiger Woods had a golf coach, and they're the greatest golfers in the world. Why did they have
ironically until he fired his golf coach?
Yeah, right. Well, he has a whole other story. Yeah, he has a whole other story, which is kind of interesting to look at. His story, you can look at it and go, money doesn't always buy you happiness, because he had an unlimited supply of it. He just had other things going on in his life that he was lost on. So, yeah, hope that answers your question, Aaron.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and I was going to ask too, have you heard any stories and feedback about how the person you worked with has had a ripple effect in their life of their family?
Oh yeah. It's interesting, Aaron, when I first decided to become an entrepreneur, I did it from a business coaching standpoint. And I was doing, I had a couple of programs that I offered. And what I quickly found out was that I was not best suited for that. I was much more interested in the person. And I continue to be most interested. I love business, by the way, and discussing business and looking at it. But what I found that really got me going was that when I could work with people and make a difference in their lives, because the business programs, anybody could put a business program in, it could be world class, but that does not mean that. But if you were the type of person that was just hating on life and not happy with life, it didn't matter what the business system was. And so, that's what, and I had some things occur in my life that really led me down this road, but that's where, working with men and being able to walk with them and guide them, it has a huge difference on not just their business life, but their family life, their friends. They can be more present. They can be more authentic and more real. And, you don't have to be something at work and something at home, and that's what it's all about. I don't even differentiate between home life and work life. Now I work from home, so I feel like I never leave here, but I think it's important to just be present with who you are. And the only way that you can do that is to work on work on yourself. So.
Well, I know, ironically, Stephanie wanted to bring up two things. A lot of, and a lot of, Aaron, your question and Mike, your answer went to this. Men have a fear of being held accountable and a fear of change quite often. Yeah.
Yeah, but that should be what they embrace. If you embrace that, you'll be able to catapult your life forward. And it is doable. I felt all of those things, at some point in my life. And look at me now. I'm talking about it here on a podcast. And I'm not by any chance saying, oh, I've arrived. I'm where I want to be. No, I don't want to lead somebody to believe that. But what I've been able to see by being around various groups is that, having the life you want is very, very doable. But, holding stuff back is holding back stuff, holding stuff on the inside. It's not a good way to live. It will hold you back, and it can be incredibly lonely and isolating. And it's just not a great way to live.
Well, and that's one of the things that we're taught by our parents from ever, don't hold it in, let it out. Doctors have been saying it forever. Stephanie also asks, do you find that the topics you work on with your clients are more personal or business related, or both?
I think they bleed over into each other. You know, I will tell you this, if your personal life is going to crap, you're not going to be 100% at your job. You're just not. There's no way. It's not possible. You know, and so I think that they carry over. You know, there might be something as simple as, you know, I worked with somebody. I can't honestly say they were the most organized in the world. We did a lot of work around using a calendar and a to-do list and just really getting organized. Well, if you can conquer that in your personal life, you can do it in your business life. If you can do it in your business life, you do it in your personal life. And so, because it's really important to understand what's imperative and what's important in life. Because if you're doing stuff that's important all the time, the imperative stuff's not getting done. And then, you know, if it's not getting done at work, well, they may give you an option that you don't like, you know, and if it's happening in your home life, your spouse may give you an option that you don't like. So, you know, some of this is some of the things that I may talk with somebody about are simple, but you know, those are the things that we get away from sometimes. You know, we make life complex because sometimes life gets messy for a while and we just get off track. My goal is to get you back on the rails so that we can get you going down the road that you want to go down.
Mr. Z, what have you learned today?
Well, a lot of things. I'm going to skip the closet idea, but I do like the idea of embracing fear because it will catapult you to places where you haven't thought of before. So thanks, Mike, for that reminder. Or do you prefer Coach Mike? Just being able to, you know, embrace fear and tell fear, I'm not afraid of you because I know you're not afraid of me. So what's stopping you? What's stopping me from getting to the next level? It's myself. It's the person in the mirror. And we all have that fear of, I'm not saying we, but let's just say most men or people and women have that fear of getting out of our comfort zones. And life begins outside the comfort zone. I don't want to sound cliche, but if you don't believe in yourself, then who's going to believe in you? And it's nice to know there are people like you, Mike, Zach, Aaron, Steph, and maybe Irene to remind us that we can do this, but not alone. And it's always good to follow those footprints towards success. That's all I have to say.
You know, thank you for joining us, brother. I know that you got to be jumping off here real quick. But thank you as always for joining us. You can always get a hold of Mr. Z one more time by going to Z World Webs and look, do yourself a favor. If you have a need for a website, you have questions about website, and if you definitely have questions about ADA compliance, yes, that is a thing when it comes to the website. We're not asking you to put on a wheelchair ramp to your website.
With a staff of IT people in your warehouse.
Yeah, with a staff of 6 IT people. It kind of sounds like we've had an experience with this, doesn't it?
Quite a very interesting experience indeed.
Yes.
And it cost over $2 million in legal fees for some people, but I won't say names, but let's just say they're just dinosaurs.
Yeah. So, but please check out Z World Webs. Aaron, I got a question for you real quick.
Yeah.
The discussion that we've had today, what are some of the things that you have heard that are similar when you're discussing this with women?
Something that stood out was what Mike mentioned about the mask. I think that that's something that women or men both grapple with in their own way. And some people may not even know they're wearing a mask in the first place because the things that we've picked up on are from our parents. Maybe, you know, we've mimicked and imitated and become little versions of them up to a certain degree. You know, we have our own flavor, but and really looking at, okay, you know, what do we want our lives to look like intentionally? And that's what I got a lot from what you were talking about, Mike.
Yeah.
And I really, really appreciate what you're doing. You know, I'm kind of exiting the life coaching world But what I can say is that there is a significant need for a Bible based foundation within that realm, and that people are looking for that. It's just not very prevalent. And so I see you as being able to help people who maybe aren't signing up with you just because of that, but also that people who are looking specifically for that, that they can be able to find that kind of thought process behind it that leads them to that kind of greater thinking, because it isn't all just about ourself, which is kind of where some of the life coaching that I have taught untryingly was very self-centered. What do I want? What makes me happy? What, all this stuff. So I love that you have a different kind of, there is the depth behind it, as well as, what would make me happy. And there's that other element that is also everlasting as well, that has a deeper implication.
Yeah, thanks for that, Aaron. It's interesting. I've had people try to talk me out of the Jesus angle, if you will. And I can't, no, I won't do it. Can't do it. Thanks for your opinion. I don't see a need to do it that way. And, I've had people say, well, you're going to miss out on opportunities. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And so, that's the way I do it. Now I say this to everybody, cause some people will ask, I don't come on quoting scripture or, I do call myself a Christian life coach. What does that mean? It just means I exemplify being a Christian. That's it. Now, I've had people say, will you pray for me? Sure. And, I've had conversations where it never comes up. That's fine. That's not the goal. Do I see it as discipling? Yes, I do see it that way. Because I have a greater understanding of what discipling is. But I'm, if somebody comes to me, I'm not gonna, there is no, Christian requirement. That said, if they're not somewhat of a believer, they're probably not going to choose me as a coach anyway.
Yeah.
I know that we're running a little over here, Mike. I hope that you've got a few more minutes for us. I've got two real quick questions.
Sure.
And a very loud dog that just scared the hell out of me.
We like dogs.
The first question is, why are people, because we hear this same thing from Brian of Project Die Hard, that they wanted, that people came in and say, you know what, we need you to take religion out of this. Why are people so afraid of anyone's religion? And I'm not just saying Christianity here. I'm saying, why are people afraid of religion?
They don't understand it. I think there are a lot of people that I jokingly say people want a fast food Jesus in a fast food world. We want everything now. I mean, we have trained ourselves like dogs to get packages at our door within 2 days or less, that, didn't even exist. You can run down and you can have almost anything now, but faith doesn't, if you were to pray for something right now, you'll receive it on God's time. Is that an hour, a day, a week, a month? Who's to say? And I think what has happened in this fast food world, where we're getting instant gratification, there's all this serotonin running around in our brains from getting an immediate answer on everything. I think that people, they don't study faith, and they don't have it. And then everybody's got an opinion on who's right and who's wrong. And we've allowed politics to get in the middle of it, on a wide range of topics that I won't touch on. But, we live in a very divided times.
Mm-hmm.
And my personal belief is because part of it is because we've taken God out of it, and we've allowed other things to enter into the mainstream. I remember growing up, nothing was open on Sunday. You couldn't even barely go down to the gas station and get gas on Sundays. Now you have travel baseball, travel cheerleading, travel volleyball. All of that stuff's fighting for the church's attention and those types of things on Sundays. You've got church denominations virtually at war with each other over what they believe should be a part of their church doctrine. And so, everybody, it feels like, has picked their little thing that they want to argue over, and it's dividing us. It's dividing us to the point where we can't get along on anything. By the way, the next election that takes place next year will not change anything. It doesn't matter who's elected.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. And because everybody seems to have planted a flag for what they think is right and wrong. And it feels very hard, like we can't get on the same page, and why we're attacking religion in the way that it's being attacked right now is predictable. This stuff was been going, you can read about it in the Bible. Really, in fact, it may have been far worse, in the Bible. But if you go to places like Africa, you've got, if you're a believer in Africa, I've got a gentleman from Uganda in my Friday morning men's group. He jumps in on Zoom and comes into our men's group every Friday morning. And this guy is a true man of God. Holy cow. He's incredible. But, his life is on the line because he's a believer in God. The Muslims want to kill this guy. They literally want to kill this guy. We've walked this walk with him. And so there are parts of the world right now, maybe not so much here in the United States, but there are places in the world where if you're a believer, your life is on the line. And, it's, I don't know. I can tell you this. I'm not going to change my stance on it. I'm not going to change my name. I've had people harass me about the name True Man. They didn't like it because man was in the name. I've been attacked on that. That's fine. Believe what you want to believe, but I believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And there's nothing that somebody can do to change that. And if they don't like it, there's a channel for them. There's a coach for them. That's just the way it is.
I appreciate your strength. I appreciate your, your morality, and I really just appreciate you coming in and joining us. Here you go, Stephanie. And all I could think of when you were talking about this story is Jerusalem itself. There are places I think one of the funniest things is you've got a ladder that is stuck up in a window that's been up in that window for, I believe, like 175 years. And you cannot get the three main religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim. You cannot get them agree if it's okay to bring that ladder down. So that ladder's just been stuck up in a window for 170 some years.
Yeah.
That just makes me laugh. It really does. It's like, oh my God, the ladder's going to fall and kill somebody. Get it out of the damn window. Okay. It's, but that is something. Aaron, what have you learned today? Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I appreciate your transparency, what you've navigated through, the decisions you've made to stay the true course to what it is that you find to be, the truth in your life, and to help people in the way you've chosen to. And I guess for me, the greatest takeaway is that it's just so great to see people such as yourself stepping up to the plate to be there as an example to other men. And, we need about 1,000 of you.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
would what would it look like, Aaron and Mike, if maybe there was a session where you two like teamed up, and Aaron, you could talk more to the women, and Mike, you talk more to the men, and maybe not in the marriage counseling thing, but kind of one of those things where we can take and, hey, you know what? Men are from Mars, women are from Venus, this whole thing, okay, ladies, this is what the guy is trying to say, and maybe not making it apparent. And then Mike, have you doing the same thing, because
I would say it's about a 30-second. That's about 30 seconds. I can tell you what a guy.
Yeah. So, but what would something like that, would that be beneficial, just to try to maybe open lines of communication?
I think that, with all the women that I've worked with in the past through life coaching, I've been able to really gather a lot of the things that they're navigating through. And also, um, I think I could provide a lot of insight in that way, at least. And it sounds like Mike's working with a lot of guys over time.
Yeah, it's interesting. I obviously can't. Here's a controversial statement: men and women are different, right? But we're, in so many respects, we're much closer than we think from a mental perspective. We may do things differently just because of our makeup, and so I commonly will say something, and I'll say from a man's perspective, but it's sometimes it's true from a female perspective too. And so I think that there's a give and take that needs to go on between men and women. And I think that we need to know, it's important. I mean, when you go to work, when you have a review and they talk about strengths and weaknesses, why wouldn't you do the same thing in your family? Why wouldn't you do the same thing with your wife? Here's my strength. Here's my weakness, and talk about it. And so I think that those are critically important to having a good marriage. If you don't talk about that, obviously you're going to part ways at some point.
Yep. Well, Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on and joining us, and thank you for letting people know that you're out here. Ladies and gentlemen, look, 2022 numbers are out. 49,449 Americans took their life in 2022. That's 135 people every day, and that's 5 people every hour. There are people like Aaron, like Mike, that are out here that are willing to talk to you if you need it. That's what Footprints Forward is about. We want to make sure that we can help you find the people who can help you out. Mike, you said something earlier, and I'll end it on this, but you said something earlier, and it makes me think that, you and I, where we have vast differences, we are alike. All the time, I tell people, look, the reason why your situation, why you feel alone, is because it's happening to you.
Yeah.
And I say it all the time. Look, there are always going to be somebody out there who have an idea on what you're going through. I'll never, ever say that somebody knows exactly how you feel, because we don't. It's impossible for us to know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
But there are people out there who have been through something so similar that they can help. Just make sure that you reach out to someone, okay? We're all in this together, this crazy, crazy divisive world. We're all in this together, but you know what? There's always people who can work with you. Mike, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, send me an email, reach out to me, Mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. You can go out to my website, truemanlifecoaching.com. My podcast is on there. My books, my blog. It's a great place to hang out and learn more. And we're always working, trying to add to it. And you can connect to me on social media from there as well. So
you can also get him on LinkedIn, Mike Van Pelt, author. So, Mike, thank you very much one more time. Aaron, Stephanie, Thank you for continuing to participate, even though internet didn't cooperate well. Mr. Z, thank you very much. Hey, next week, guys, we have a great friend of mine and a partner in the Community Pay It Forward family, Miss Daria Mann. She is a hypnotist and a family coach. So she's going to be coming in 2 different ways. Dear friend of mine. I've known her for about 4 years, and she's just been a wonderful person. So please do remember, we're just here to try to find a way, because your way is not going to be my way. My way is definitely not going to be your way. So, I can almost guarantee that. But for everyone here, we want to say thank you very much. And please take care of yourself. And don't let a friend walk away if you've got questions. Make sure you call somebody, because the last time you talk to them could be the last time anyone talks to them. So thank you very much. We'll see you all next week.